Are invited to attend in-person meetings in council chambers. Public access is also available by telephone by using the call-in numbers posted on the meeting agenda, and the open portion of tonight's meeting will be broadcast on the city's YouTube channel online. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Leidy.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Lukeman Hiramasa is running late. Councilmember Burns.
Here.
Councilmember Jaramillo.
Here.
Councilmember Kondo will be absent for the special meeting. Councilmember Roper.
Here.
Councilmember Goff.
Here.
Councilmember Nowicki.
Here.
Councilmember Walker.
Here.
Thank you.
I will entertain a motion that the city meet in executive session pursuant to Section 4.5G of the City of Northglenn Home Rule Charter for negotiations concerning the purchase, sale, lease, or other acquisition of real or personal property or interest therein, or concerning any contract except those required to be the subject of competitive bidding regarding negotiation or a negotiating strategy for the Northglenn Civic Center property. Someone can say, so moved.
So moved.
Second. Thank you very much. All right, please open the vote.
The vote is open.
Please vote.
I will close that vote, and the motion to meet in executive session passes unanimously.
That is new. Okay. So I think we're good on the YouTube feed. It's just turned off. Okay, I will now call the study session meeting of July 7th, 2025 to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Leidy,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Luke Benhiro-Massa. Here. Councilmember Burns.
Here.
Councilmember Jaramillo.
Here.
Councilmember Kondo. Councilmember Roper.
Here.
Councilmember Goff.
Here.
Councilmember Nowicki.
Here.
Councilmember Walker.
Here.
Okay, so we have a new protocol after we do some extensive learning. So the first item is the City Council debrief, not only the U.S. Conference of Mayors, but also the CML conference. And so as far as facilitation of this, I think what we need to remember is that if we have learning that we want to share with others, now's the time to do it. If we have ideas that we want to bring forward, we need to get council consensus for it before we access staff time. Is that everyone's understanding? Great. Does anyone want to jump in there? Anyone want to go first? Councilmember Burns.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Okay, CML was super cool. The thing that I went to the Thornton presentation about their media, basically. They basically have an entire, like, syndicated, like, media distribution system, like Thornton.tv. And so they have, like, a Roku app, essentially, that they put their council meetings on and all kinds of stuff. I don't think we need to do that. I think, like, YouTube is just fine. The thing that I thought was really interesting and maybe something we can bring forward to talk about here is after every council meeting, they do a 2-minute recap video for people to watch and sort of like power through taking the footage, which I think would be really helpful to residents. And I thought that was a really cool idea. I was also up in Winter Park and they do a podcast version so people can like listen on their way, which I thought was like when they're driving around, which I thought was interesting. So I do think like there are some interesting and cool ideas out there to meet people where they are and help them access this information. But I really think doing the recap would be super cool. Not that everything we say isn't super important, but you know what I mean? Like, I think 2 minutes is better than 3 hours for people. Yeah.
I mean, I agree. How do people feel about that?
That sounds great.
I think it does sound great. I think it's, I mean, sometimes we power through some easy business stuff, but sometimes we make decisions that have an impact on residents, and we should probably share that out quickly. Yeah. Is that something that staff can talk about, or is that a separate study session that we need to have to discuss?
It depends on how council would like to see this come forward. A couple options. You can provide me with direction to do a mock-up and bring you a mock-up and take a look at that. That would probably get you closer to what you want sooner than having a discussion item to talk about what you're talking about now. So I would recommend the first option, and we could probably do something like that probably well, let me talk to staff tomorrow. I'm thinking maybe by early August, see where it fits in priorities. But if you say it's a high priority, we want to see something sooner than later, then I'll reprioritize other things.
I mean, I would like to see a mock-up. And it sounds like Thornton has some examples, so that's great.
So we'll do a 2-minute mock-up, better than what Thornton provides currently. How does that sound?
Always.
Make sure that's in the first clip.
We're not
Make
competitive
sure
at
that's in
all.
the first clip.
Councilmember Burns, did you have anything else you wanted to highlight?
I think my panel went really well. Maybe the best.
Yes,
of
it
them.
did. I agree.
No, but I moderated a panel on bridging generational divides on the dais for the elected officials breakfast. And I had council members from Broomfield, Westminster, and Steamboat Springs join me. And, you know, sharing a vastly different perspectives on what it's like to have juggling priorities, council, having jobs, kids, babies, finding housing, all kinds of things. Yeah, and it was really good. It was really good to connect with everybody. And I think that's the only thing I really wanted to take away was the video from Thornton. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone want to go next? Councilmember Kondo, welcome. Would you like to jump in and share your learning about at CML?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can you all hear me okay?
A little bit. It's a little low, but
Okay, I'm gonna get a little bit closer here. I'll just share two tidbits. First of all, props to Tamara Dixon, who was the moderator of the Elevating Voices panel. I see maybe some people are squinting. Are you still hearing me okay, or are you not?
you're just very faint. If you could get closer, that'd be great.
Okay. I feel like the Verizon guy. Can you hear me now? Okay, so briefly, props to Tamara Dixon for the Elevating Voices panel, which included our Mayor Pro Tem of Lafayette, Brian Wong, and also Council Member Angela Lawson from Aurora. And I'll let Mayor Pro Tem kind of expand on that a little bit further. I will say that one of the most informative events was the mobile tour, and this was in regards to the e-bike system that is set up there in Breckenridge, where they have 30 stations, 170 some bikes, and basically you can ride from one docking station to another. It's a very efficient way of being able to get around. And for example, residents in Breckenridge for a $50 subscription fee per season have unlimited number of rides. So very innovative idea, and it certainly helps with connecting that first and last mile, so to speak, to getting into mass transit or other transportation modes. So those are the two things, Madam Mayor, I'd like to share. Lastly, I do want to share one other item related to the Elevating Voices, and that was the whole inappropriate comment that was made by George Teal, Douglas County, who had made a claim about a Japanese American woman being part of the Chinese Communist Party. Totally inappropriate. I will stop there, but there's more information that can be seen online, as well as a petition to ask for Mr. Teal to apologize to said person. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
So, Councilmember Kondo, did you have any, so thank you for the update. That was great. Do you have any direct ideas that you would like to propose that council moves forward with? Or were you just really sharing out the celebrations from the time?
At this time, I don't have any direct direction, if you will. I did leave some flyers that I picked up with City Manager Geyer before leaving on my business trip, so she has all the information that I collected. But no specific direction at this time.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Jaramillo?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. One of the ones I attended was What's Happening with DOLA. That's the Department of Local Affairs. And they had a lot of tangible grants I feel that Northglenn can apply for. One of them is the CDBG. That's the Community Development Block Grant. And it's a federal grant that provides funding to local governments to address a wide range of community development needs with benefiting low and moderate income individuals, such as affordable housing, infrastructure improvements, and economic development opportunities. I feel like there's an opportunity here that we could apply for this particular grant. And there's another one also that I feel like we can get is there's $35 million for transit-oriented communities. And, that could be possibly Civic Center. It could be the station on 112th in York. The one that's, well, there's other opportunities, but there's $35 million. I think that's something that we can totally apply for. And we're located in the North Central Grant area. So I didn't look at the whole map of everything, but that's where we would, that pool of money is. And we also have the Colorado Main Street program, and that's would deal more with economic development, I feel. It deals more with our small businesses, and that's just a couple that I feel like we could really access. The beginning of the presentation was pretty doom and gloom with a lot of cuts, but that's the bright spots that that was towards the end. So wanted to share that. But other than that, there was a wonderful experience as always. You know, you had great people like motivating us to, you know, go back to and realize why we're serving on, you know, to live fulfilled lives, helping others and shining our lights on others and great things like that, where it's like, okay, you know, I feel more motivated coming back from this. So I hope everybody else feels the same way. Thank you.
I'm glad you mentioned that. That is certainly part of the purpose and the reason to be there. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. Councilmember Goff?
Thank you, Mayor. So I went to 2 different sessions on housing, and so if you have the app for this from CML, you can look up. They have all the PowerPoints and presentations and slides and information. And the first one was on regional housing strategies, and they had a lot of data and information that Dr. Cog had collected, plus people from Littleton, from Housing Colorado, Pitkin County. Those were I think the 3 groups. And they were saying that our region has not produced enough housing to keep pace with population and job growth, which is no surprise. But also that low-income households, and they define that as below 60% area median income, represent the greatest need for additional housing, and which is, you know, I guess I feel like missing middle maybe is where I feel in Northglenn we're missing housing, but they're saying in the whole area it's more lower income. And then also that aging population leads to, and smaller household trends require more diverse housing types. And again, this is where I think that the retail or realty markets are not in development construction people are not really responding to what's immediately in front of us, which is that they're going to be building all this massive, either real expensive or really cheap housing, and then our population is going to be dropping, and you know we're going to have those things, some of those things sitting empty. And that also that they did say in their study that housing types and affordability are unevenly distributed across the region. So it was really more about how through the whole North Metro region, people could be working better together. And I'm just putting that out as a chance for people to get more information if they would like it. But in terms of the middle income housing, that was another workshop that I went to. Was called Minding the Gap, which is the gap of middle housing. And there was some possibilities there about parking, which was really interesting to me, and especially if we're thinking about the Station Village, that if you reduce, with our code and rules that we have here in Northglenn, we reduce parking minimums near transit areas, that can really reduce the cost of the housing, or at least for the developer. Hopefully they would pass that along. But, and then also that supports and encourages more walkable areas. So that's something that I think that we should be looking into. They said this, I don't know where they got this data. I could look it up on their slide, but a typical 2-car garage can significantly increase housing costs as much as $60,000 for row homes, making home ownership less attainable for many people. So that was one of the suggestions that they had. And then, of course, they did some talking about, which is more of communication, the comms, about when you're talking about development, not to focus so much on things like density, but focus on more housing options and neighborhood scale development and that kind of thing, so that people can get a better sense of the positive impact of doing this sort of thing. Let's see, what else? I just feel, the other thing that I thought was also very interesting, and I don't know what our codes are in Northglenn about, but that if you can either encourage or make it easier or more acceptable for people to use modular and factory-built housing, that can save a lot on costs. And because of the technology and innovations that we've had more recently, it's not like, you know, in your mind you might be thinking of like a mobile home trailer park kind of thing, but it's much different these days, and you know, could meet our expectations for what our community should look like, but it's also cheaper. So they were recommending that you amend local regulations to permit modular and factory-built homes that meet state or universal or city standards to establish expedited permitting for those projects. So there were some different strategies that we could possibly use as we are looking at our future development to encourage more, if not affordable, more attainable, whatever the definition is, but housing that's somewhere in between apartments and inexpensive single-family homes. And I think that I did attend other things, but that was really, for me, the big takeaway. And I did appreciate that we have council members that presented, so we could be very proud of Northglenn that way. Megan's presentation was great. Our mayor did a great presentation. I missed Mayor Pro Tem's. I hope that next year we can do a better job of communicating who's presenting so that we can support each other better. But anyway, that was it for me. Thank you.
Yeah, that does lead to a good idea that Councilmember Goff shared with me while we were there is, can we have like a pre-meeting before we go and sort of plan and just hear, right? Because we were sort of coming and going and we were kind of ships in the night. And the fact that we had 3 council members presenting at CML was impressive. Northglenn definitely showed up. But as far as us connecting together, we were kind of missing each other the whole time. So possibly having a meeting before either the NLC, if I think right now only a few people are going, but I would encourage those people to get together ahead of time and make a plan, and then just logistical plan, not a plan for, meeting, but just a logistics, make sure that we can connect while we're there. I would also agree with that. I don't see any other hands. I'm going to go real fast, unless anyone else wanted to share. Oh, go ahead. You go first.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to put my hand down, sorry. So my, my stay at CML was a little bit shorter because I had to leave at 2 o'clock in the morning, straight to the airport for a wedding in Hawaii. So I'm not too sad about that. I'm a little jet lagged today with the 4-hour time difference because I just got back. But I did have the opportunity to present, and that was the main reason I went, and I left right after. So sad that I missed yours, both of yours, just because I left super early on Thursday morning. But our panel went extremely well. So this was a panel idea that I submitted. And it was Empowered Voices in Civic Service, and was so grateful that Director Dixon agreed to moderate it, and she did such a fantastic job. She really did. Because as you can imagine, we did get off topic a couple of times, and she really was able to rein us in and kept us right on track, but the discussion was so great. And as Councilmember Kondo mentioned, the other panelist was Angela Dawson from Aurora City Council, and Brian Wong from Lafayette, Mayor Pro Tem. So it was a very diverse panel, and then myself, of course. And we talked about just, what it means to engage our community and what barriers are to representation. You can't get more engagement if you don't understand what those barriers are. So we talked about different strategies that all of us are doing in our cities. For example, I talked very happily about what we do here in Northglenn with our DICE board, engaging the community, our youth commission, which is very diverse. A lot of cities and municipalities that were asking questions didn't have a youth commission. And that was something that was brought up and talked about at length as well to get youth involved. I talked about our video series, Northglenn Voices, also some of the different events that I've been involved in, like the very first Festival Latino, along with Councilmember Jaramillo, being a part of former Congresswoman Caravello's Latino Advisory Council, things like that I've personally done within this role to engage more of our community and get a more diverse representation, serving on the Colorado Asian Coalition with Councilmember Kondo as well, and Mayor Pro Tem Wong is the one that kind of helped form that. So we talked about, engaging community through partnerships and coalitions. And that's a great way to get more people involved in civics. A lot of folks, there's besides language barriers, there's cultural barriers. There's also a lack of trust in government, inherent lack of trust. So when we talk about civic engagement, we really have to think about how do we overcome that lack of trust, and what does that mean? It's different for everyone. Not a lot of people, when you talk about politician or an elected official, go, oh yeah, that's great, we love politicians. It's usually the opposite. So how do we get the word out? And it was a really great conversation. The session was packed. Really sad that you guys couldn't make it, but the session was absolutely packed. I missed the session right after because there were so many people talking to me afterwards and throughout the night. So the engagement and the response was great. The feedback was really good as well. Between the three of us, we gave a lot of great ideas in terms of what it means, to reach out, because government should be representative of everyone. And if we look at the composition of, we have people of color or Latinos or Asians or different communities, and then you look at what's represented in government, it doesn't quite match up, or women. And we need to kind of get those numbers up, right, so that everybody's voices are heard, and that is literally the goal. But it was a great conversation. That's it in a nutshell. I went to some opening sessions, and I don't really have anything to bring forth in terms of ideas or requests. That's it. Thank you.
Okay. Great, thank you. A couple things. I'm going to dial back to the U.S. Conference of Mayors for just a minute. There were a couple things I wanted to unpack and get some information from council on. So there was a whole session on cybersecurity, and we know how important that is, but, our city is as big as it is. All municipalities are at risk, and it's a significant thing. So I had a couple of questions for staff, and then I had a wondering about our businesses. So one of them was, I would actually like to see all by itself the full IT budget, if that was possible, especially as we head into the budget season. And then just curious about the percent of our IT budget goes to cybersecurity. I don't know if anyone else is interested in that. I think knowing the IT budget would be really important. We've had some questions along those lines over the last year anyway. And then specifically thinking about cybersecurity, wondering if council would be okay if we asked Director Moding to possibly help, and I'd be happy to be a part of it, but host some sort of community forum about cybersecurity specifically for our businesses. Do they have, a lot of our small businesses, they may not have the tools and tips and training that we take as employees, but they're just at risk as the city for cybersecurity. And then also, kind of thinking through that same line, I think this has come up maybe casually, but how do we offer some sort of information to our residents? I know we're putting out little things like Northglenn PD will say, hey, don't get scammed by this, don't get scammed by that. But I'm thinking specifically, just from personal experience, the older population in our city might not be as savvy to some of the tricks. And so could we host, one or two even sessions for the community around, it's not as big as cybersecurity, but it is. It's internet security and banking security. And, I can just tell you a story. My parents have cell phones, but they don't necessarily do all of the banking on their cell phone efficiently. And they're more susceptible to a phone call or an email. Like I got an email from Netflix, looked very real, telling me I needed to change my payment information. Well, I knew not to do anything with that, but there's a lot of people that don't. And I've talked to so many people in the last couple weeks that are and there are such a variety of different scams. And so those are kind of two things. There's like the bigger cybersecurity issue, how are we protecting ourselves? Do we have a sizable IT budget that's covering that? And then also, is there something we can do for our businesses? And then the third level is, can we do something for our residents to help them stay safe with all of their internet stuff? So I know those were three things. So I don't know. How do people feel about digging into the IT budget? Is that good? Okay. Second one is cybersecurity event, some sort of forum or expo for our businesses. Like, I mean, this is not a tomorrow thing. It's a can we put it on the list thing, if that makes sense. And then, does that make sense?
It does make sense.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
And then the community forum or some sort of community event, and that could even, I could even take that on as a mayor's event. We could just twist it in the fall.
I was just wondering if their senior center has already done something like that.
I mean, it may need to be a ongoing thing, or do we need to have
I
a?
asked Director Peterson, and they have done some outreach and educational forums for our seniors. I think what the mayor is suggesting is different. So
Mm-hmm.
perhaps it is something that you take on for one of your meetings.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it could be a
It would need to
whole-
be an additional piece beyond what they've already done.
yeah, yeah, I think it is. And I think it's not tailored just to seniors. I think that's the thing is it's really for everyone. Does everyone know, like, don't answer this call, don't respond to that text, don't, like, all of these things put you at risk of your banking information being compromised. So, yeah, but maybe we can just pull that together. It could be the theme of October. And we could add it. Okay.
Yeah, I'll follow up with Director Peterson and Chief May, and then we can have some more conversation tomorrow in our weekly one-on-one or
Okay.
talk about it.
Great.
I think that's a great idea for fall.
Okay. What? Yeah.
In terms of like the cybersecurity, I wonder if that's something Director Moding could take on, 'cause since they're doing like the business lunches or something, lunch and learn. I don't know. I'm just saying that's a great idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes,
Something.
that's on the list for Director Modine.
Yeah, I think that'd be great. And then I'm going to go from a serious to a not serious. This was the coolest thing. There's rain-activated paint for the sidewalk. And it was so cool. I had never seen it, and I can't even tell you where it is. But it was mentioned by somebody, but they would put like inspirational quotes or like just beautiful poems or whatever when it rained. It seemed like a very low-hanging fruit to just bring joy to the city. I don't know how people feel about that, but
That sounds fun.
it's a small idea, but I thought it was cute. So if anyone's interested in that, maybe we can find a place to pilot it and then,
What I'd recommend is you provide direction, and I'd ask Director Peterson to share it with NAHF. And I think if you agree, that would be the right place to start and see what potential there is to.
that makes sense. It doesn't seem like it's terribly expensive. I think it was about the stencils and then different artists do them. And so, I don't know, it has great potential, and it also could be something really simple. So I don't know if, yeah,
You good
or
with
is
that?
anyone against rain-activated paint?
Oh, there you go. Okay, cool.
Does anyone hate rain-activated joy? Okay.
So Director Peterson just mentioned a potential collaboration with Youth Commission. So if you provide consensus on that, we can add that to the list.
Everyone's good with that?
Okay, thank you.
Rain-activated paint, okay. And that's all I have for now. Does anyone else want to jump in? Final thoughts on recent learning? Yes.
Okay, sorry, I just want to also add too, Kyle Clark from 9 News was the big speaker, which I thought was amazing. He had really great perspective on how he views the news and how the news shouldn't just be about fear mongering and being scared of your neighbors. And so he really brought his perspective of how the media and local government works together and community building, which I thought was really cool. And the thing that I think we could take away from him is he was we just need, instead of just sending a press release whenever we do something cool, is building those relationships with those teams. And he asked us to send him an email directly when we want him to know things. So because he's we don't know what we don't know. If you guys are doing cool things, just send us an email. So maybe just thinking about, instead of taking time maybe to write a press release for everything that we do, is just sending an email and just kind of fast tracking and modernizing our externally facing comms.
So, City Attorney Hoffman shared that, and I can't remember if you had shared it with me as well, Mayor. So, I started that conversation with Director Wilson last week and asked her for a few examples. She did confirm that we don't send a news release for everything, so she sent some examples and emphasized that you're correct. The relationships with the reporters are key. And so, I have some more conversation I want to have with her about what that looks like. So definitely an area of opportunity to strengthen. So I appreciate that recommendation.
Yeah, and just like specifically like the focus on the community building between local government and media, I thought was like super fascinating because it really is like, you know, two sides of the same coin almost. So that's all. Thanks.
I agree. Okay. Well, I think we've come to the end of that item. Moving on to sorry, I have no more words. Noxious Weed Management Plan. We have Parks Manager Willis Waterhouse to present this item. Welcome, come on up. Tell us about the weeds.
Good evening. Let's make sure. There we go. Okay. So the first presentation tonight is on the noxious weeds management plan that the city has incorporated. So give you a purpose and an overview of this plan tonight. And the purpose of this plan is to provide an overview and seek some feedback regarding the proposed update to the noxious weeds management plan that we've made for 2025. A little bit of background on this plan. It was first originally developed back in developed and adopted back in November of 2001. It's had substantial updates dating back to 2003, 2005, 2008, and 2010. So it's been a while since it's been kind of relooked at and revamped. It has been made to comply with the Colorado Noxious Weed Act and the Northglenn Noxious Weeds Ordinance that we have here in Northglenn. So what's the purpose of this noxious weed plan? It's really here to provide us guidelines for how we effectively manage and prioritize our noxious weeds. And the management plans for certain noxious weeds goes into detailed integrated plans specific to those individual plants. So I want to share some progress that's been made since the inception of this plan. And so since 2000, early 2000s, 2001, when it was enacted, we've actively managed Oscar Arnold Nature Area, which has resulted in a vast increase in the healthy native grasslands out there over all of that landscape. All known populations of purple loosestrife have been eradicated. I've been informed that there was pretty good pollution or population of those throughout a handful of city-owned properties throughout the city. Those have been completely eradicated. Poison hemlock is significantly reduced. We do still see poison hemlock out and had actually kind of a little bit of a resurgence last year in some areas, but we are very aggressive in managing that. And then coordination with neighborhood services to implement individual management plans on private properties. So this has been a program that was updated and brought forth where we will actually help code enforcement to go out and talk with neighbors specifically to what's going on in their yard or on their properties and help them figure out how to best manage that. So some of the objectives of the plan is to develop management programs for noxious weeds on public property, provide residents with technical support in weed management, coordination with other governmental agencies, namely the state of Colorado, Adams County, other neighboring jurisdictions, other municipalities. And we make all attempts to utilize the most environmentally friendly, least damaging weed management methods possible. So some of our highlights of goals include targeting teasel in the Oscar Arnold Nature Area and the Grange Hall Creek corridors. Continuing suppression of the Canada thistle, musk thistle, and Scotch thistle. Those thistles are high on our radar. Supporting neighborhood services and addressing noxious weeds on private property through the education and their enforcement. Reducing hoary crest, maintaining the reduction of poison hemlock, evaluating and expanding biological controls when able to, and overseeing native grasses. And as well as we have what would very much like to develop and maintain the GIS mapping of noxious weed infestations and control measures. So what is a noxious weed? Those are defined and designated by the state of Colorado. There's 3 main lists and then an additional watch list. So list A is eradication. Those are required for municipalities and property owners to eradicate throughout the state of Colorado. List B is a management list. So we have direction from the state of Colorado that those need to be managed to the best of our abilities. And then list C is slightly brought down from that, where it's recommended management, excuse me. So they recommend that you manage those prior to them getting a full infestation. And then there's a watch list, which are new and emerging plants and species that have not quite made it onto one of those top 3 lists. On top of that, the city of Northglenn has also our own designated plant list of priority weeds. So our priority weeds in Northglenn, I won't read them all off to you, but there's a list of what those are currently. The management options that we have and the methods that we use include biological, so insects and grazing animals mostly. Mechanical methods, so mowing, tilling, hand removal, or burning. Cultural methods, which is routine and scheduled mowings, overseeding, irrigation, soil amendments, and soil recomposition. Sorry for the typo there. So changing the actual soil composition to allow for healthier stands of native grasses and plants. And then chemical applications, so using chemicals or organic herbicides that are either selective, they select certain species, either broadleaf or very specific plants, or non-selective, meaning they basically target anything they come in contact with. So our management measures, kind of a schedule look at that is February, we're really locking down and determining what biological controls will be utilized for the upcoming season. March and April, we begin our inspection season, looking specifically for poison hemlock and teasel. It's kind of the first to emerge. April and May, we start spraying operations for teasel, musks, thistles and hoary cress, poison hemlock, and we have had our goat grazing program take place in these months as well. July, continuing spraying. Knapweed is kind of one of our primary targets. Into August, still scouting for any additional purple loosestrife that is popping up or emerging. Luckily, we have not had any recently, but we still go out and do inspections on properties and look specifically for that. And spraying any yellow-toed flax that is present. And then just ongoing all the time, we do training and make sure that staff is out doing inspections. They're reporting any kind of infestations that they see, not only on city property, but anywhere within city bounds on public or private property. So we're here to ask if there's anything else that would like to be explored or any different proposals that would like to be made from council. And the process, just so that where we're at in this process, is this has already been presented to the Parks and Rec Advisory Board back on June 12th. They provided direction to go ahead and bring this forward to City Council. So we're here tonight. And if you guys choose to move forward, we would bring that back, plan to bring that back at this point on July 28th.
Great.
Okay.
We have a few questions. Councilmember Kondo.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question, first of all, thank you for presenting. Really appreciate your description about how you're addressing or mitigating various target weed species. My question has to do with an inquiry from a resident who has asked numerous years in a row about the sumac tree. And I wonder if you could provide some commentary on that. I did not see any reference to the sumac plant as being classified a noxious weed. Thank you.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the specific plant you're talking about? I'm having a little hard time hearing you.
Tree of Heaven is on the
Tree
list.
of Heaven. Yes. Yes, we actually is not on. Well, it's not on the list. It was at one point on the Northglenn priority weed list, as I understand it. It has since been removed, but we have a fairly comprehensive and aggressive plan for that. If there are reports of the Tree of Heaven plants on any private property or public property, we will work directly with the code enforcement agency. They go out, and that division will go out talk and work with the individual homeowners and property owners. So it's for commercial businesses, private residents, wherever that is located at. And then we set up a plan. We have basically a backbone that's already set up. It goes out, meets with the residents, talks about the timelines that need to be, have different treatments and different methods done throughout the year. It's really not a plant that you want to go in and just cut down and try to eradicate it that way, because it really spends all of its effort at that point then in its root system, and they can really span across property lines into your neighbor's properties and just create a bigger infestation that way. So there's specific methods and treatment and how that the state of Colorado, the Colorado State Extension's Office, from Adams County has some great literature out. We basically tag onto CSU's research and documentation for most everything that we do in the weed targeting business. Those specific protocols talk about the treatment methods and the timing, and that it turns into a multi-year approach. So you would do some treatment based on the point in the year when that's reported, that you would kind of limits which direction you take off and go in. But those are a systematic process that's put in place. The code enforcement agency will, the code enforcement department, will go back out and revisit those cases and keep them in their file and go back out and talk to the property owners. The property owners are required to send updates and pictures and proof of the tree in its declining state, and then at some point they're authorized to go ahead and then cut it down at that point. So does that answer your question, sir?
Councilmember Goff?
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, I was going to ask a very similar question, because I do see the Tree of Heaven. It was on the list C, and that is one that we, as Councilmember Kondo knows, we've had a resident in our ward very concerned about the spread of that and her neighbors having it and that sort of thing. So if you don't cut it down, I mean, she's very elderly and she says she's constantly pulling them up. But what do you do? How do you get rid of them?
So the process is like I said, it's a systematic process, and it takes a little while. So it's scoring and cutting into the bark of them, applying a chemical directly to it, and then allowing that to take its effect down into the root system and kill it down in the root system first before you cut it down. Again, if you just go out and cut them down, or you pull in the suckers as they're sprouting, you pull one and it's popping two. You pull another one, it's popping a couple more, and it starts spreading again through across property lines and across your property. So.
And is there any recourse? Like in her case, she would like her neighbor to take care of the tree.
Yes, so it can be a voluntary program where somebody can call in and ask for assistance from code enforcement, but there's also an enforcement program. So if you call in and say that your neighbor's property, or you've seen it somewhere, code enforcement will go out and contact the property owner and make them start working towards the eradication.
Okay, well, I think in this case, that has happened. And now I went to her yard to look at this. This tree is probably like, I don't know, 25 feet tall. It's a very well-established tree. So
that specific tree actually was one of the reasons why it was planted and brought in for a lot of reasons, because it grows very rapidly. So it can get that 20, 25 feet in really a season or two, depending if it has the right conditions to grow in. So it is very important to go through the treatment methods. If they are already on an individual management plan, they should be being followed up with the Code Enforcement Division. And if you would like to have her contact us directly, or Code Enforcement directly, to get an update on what the status is, Code Enforcement is usually pretty good about getting back to folks right away, letting them know the status, let them know what expectations are. So unfortunately, if it's a good stand of plants already, it may take, like I said, mentioned, a couple of years to completely get it under control.
I'll follow up with her. I haven't heard from her for a while, so maybe it has been taken care of. But I was curious. And I do want to say the goat grazing is wonderful, so keep that program up. I hear so many positive things about that. And then on your herbicides, does the city, what is the policy for herbicides that are safe for pollinators?
So we do look at that, and one of the partnering agencies that we are working with extensively right now is the Butterfly Pavilion. So they have come out and done some great work with us already. They're doing property surveys and lots of other kind of cool projects that we have already done or we're working on moving forward. So pollinators are going to be a large focus on a lot of our ranger talks and ranger programming, targeting not only youth and teens, but also adult ranger rides. There'll be some just general information put out on kiosks and whatnot. So we do a heavy emphasis on pollinators and reducing the spray in areas where they are prone to be, and making sure that we do try to select proper chemicals and methods.
So if I'm hearing you right, it's like you have information or education for residents, but then the city also is working with Butterfly Pavilion to try to reduce the use of poisonous to pollinator stuff?
We're more so looking to, our partnership with the Butterfly Pavilion is increasing the resources for pollinators. So through selective plantings, through pollinator gardens, through education and informing residents about what they can plant in their properties that are good within their residential yard landscaping, and bringing about awareness. That's what we're really focused on there. But we are cognizant and aware, and we try to reduce any kind of conflicts with not just pollinators, but all wildlife, any kind of other native species, native grasses, good grasses, right? Our bluegrass turf in parks, when we go out to spray something, we're working directly with the co-op or the the Colorado CSU extension offices, asking about best control methods, best management practices, those types of things.
All right, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Burns.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thanks for putting this together in the update. I have so many just like philosophical thoughts about this. Like, you know, if I'm just a person, like, I know these aren't all like on our list, but a lot of these just look like pretty flowers, right? And like a noxious weed isn't necessarily like poisonous, like, you know, like the trees or anything like that. Like, you know, things that can kill pets understandably have to go. But I wonder too about like the impacts of climate change, and if these plants can grow and thrive here, who are we to like make them go away, I guess? And like the things that we do bring in here, like, you know, why, you know, we're an elevated desert climate, but there's lots of people who grow succulents, but that wouldn't natively grow here. And so I think like, I guess like my question around a lot of this is like, why, A, like, and B, like if I am someone just like out and about, or like, you know, I'm like, oh, this is just like a pretty yellow flower in my yard, how am I to know without looking through this very detailed report, like what is a noxious weed and why is it negatively impacting me and my community, I guess, is like a lot of my thought around this.
Certainly. So let's start with saying, but most of these weeds typically start out on roadside rights-of-way areas where they kind of get up and pick up pace, or out in native areas where it's either undeveloped land tracts or open spaces, different large bodies of unmanaged and unmanicured landscaping. So if you have most of these weeds inside of your yard and you're mowing it once a week, they aren't going to survive. The bluegrass that most people have in their yard is going to choke them out at the root system, and they're going to really overpower and they won't allow them to take hold. So they don't really grow well. Most of these don't really grow well in your manicured landscapes and your yards, so you wouldn't have them necessarily in your yard. But if you're driving down the road and you see a whole big stand of Canada thistle, it's going to be, you know, bright, vibrant purple, big, you know, really aggressive, spiky flower heads on them, and they are very pretty, right? Most of these, if you look at the pictures in there, have flowers of some sort, and they provide an aesthetic appeal. However, let me just read the definition of the state of Colorado's noxious weed. It might help clarify that a little bit, and then I'll talk about it a little bit more. But so Colorado defines noxious weeds as weeds that are non-native invasive plant species that threaten agricultural production, natural ecosystems, native plant communities, and public health, safety, and welfare. And Colorado noxious weeds are legally classified under the Colorado Noxious Weed Act and assigned to one of the 3 lists based on the current presence and management requirements. So left unchecked, most of these will start to thicken their stands, get very dense, and then they will actually take over that ecosystem and completely change the ecosystem in that area. So if we leave those in one of our open spaces, for instance, it could change the way that plants and other plants are able to survive there. The native grasses will get choked out, native species, and even some of the pollinators birds, other wildlife will not use the spaces in the same fashion or will be unable to use them. Some of them are poisonous to different animals, not all of them, but some of them are. So that could be why they're on there for the agricultural purposes, for cattle, for horses, for some of the grazing animals. It's really targeted and specific. It's not just because somebody didn't like them somewhere and so they want to get rid of them. It's really that they end up taking over, creating monocultures or changing and creating unhealthy stands. Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Nowicki?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for being here. I'd love to kind of nerd out on some of this stuff because I've learned that quite of what I have in my yard is field bindweed, and that it can kind of grow pretty prolific. It's really difficult to get rid of. I know the state of Colorado offers kind of, I wanted to ask about kind of the biological controls for it and kind of how the city is utilizing that.
So it's my understanding that the city in the past, prior to my arrival here, has used more of the biological methods and done some testing with different aphids and bugs, critters that are released. I have some direct experience with programs that we worked in partnership with the Colorado State University as well, doing some numerous studies in different areas on different plants. While those can be effective and can make progress, you're talking, in most cases, you're talking 3 to 5 years to start seeing substantial progress. So it's really about, do we want to use that as our main method, where it may be effective in 3 to 5 years, but at the meantime, it's still going to continue to grow and spread and take over. So if you have undeveloped land tracts that are not used by the public for open space enjoyment and for wildlife corridors, those types of things, that's really kind of the benefit there, and to keep costs low, especially if you can get to where you're partnering with the agency like Colorado State Extension, and they're providing, a lot of times they'll provide those at a reduced or no cost effort. They did just put out recently the field bindweed program, where they have aphids and bugs that come out you can purchase to go out and release. We did get notification of that. We have it on our radar, but ultimately, if there's an aggressive stand in like one of our open spaces or park properties, we're really trying to get faster action than growing those methods.
Okay. I did want to ask a little bit about the trail system, because I notice out there, that I don't know what I'm looking at, but are there kind of invasive species along the trail system?
So we do have some of the noxious weeds that are listed here spread throughout in areas. For the most part, most of the weeds that you're seeing are not on the native or on the noxious weed program, either in city of Northglenn's priority list or on the state's watch list. However, this year, if you're out bumping around on the trails, you're probably seeing more than usual, just because of the prolific rains that we had, and the weather was it was prime season for it this year with the amount of rain we got, and then immediately popping into hot weather, and that's what they like to have. That's where they thrive and they grow. So with the 4th of July prep coming up and the fire mowing and other stuff that we did, which we'll actually talk about in the next presentation, we are slightly behind schedule on some of these properties. So we're looking forward to that event being behind us now and catching up on some of the other things. So hopefully you will see a reduction in that. But we do use primarily, especially on the trail system, we use primarily programmed mowings with frequency and spraying applications.
Okay. And one final thought with regard to kind of, I'm glad this is kind of being updated. I support it kind of being updated. I didn't know if this document is entirely new or if there were updated sections. If there were updated sections, I think it'd be helpful kind of going forward if they were kind of in red, or, that we could kind of see what updates were being made, things like that. Again, I wasn't quite sure if it's a brand new document that's kind of being rewritten or just kind of updates made to it. So just one piece of.
Thank you. Yeah, it is definitely not a brand new document. It has been updated. And so we'll take that into consideration.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I think they are looking for some direction. So I don't think we heard any, aside from tips on the presentation, are we okay to proceed with the proposed plan? Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. I did have to Google and look at these things, so pictures would help me, but I'm definitely willing to do my own homework. But I was like, what do these things actually look like?
Yeah, so if you,
Yeah.
they're like that big on the screen or on your, in the document if you print it out. But we did incorporate that into this year's update is
Oh, good.
updated pictures of what they look like when they're basically when they're flowered out. And
Yeah.
like you mentioned, most of
Oh,
them
that
have
one.
some pretty decent aesthetics that they look pretty nice. Unfortunately, they don't act very nice.
Yeah. Oh, I see it. I went right to the presentation. Skipped all the pictures. I spent way too much time Googling. Great. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, the next item, open space management plan. Tell us about this one.
There it is, okay. So again, like the Noxious Weed Management Plan, this is another document that the city is making updates. We've made updates to for the 2025 season. So the purpose of this presentation is to provide an overview and seek the feedback regarding the proposed updates to the Open Space Management Plan. A little bit of background on this plan is it was originally, the original Open Space Management Plan was adopted back in April of 2002 in conjunction with the Noxious Weed Management Plan. Updates were also provided to this document in 2004, 2008, and 2010. Like I mentioned, it followed the implementation of the 2001 Noxious Weed Management Plan kind of in tandem. So why do we have the Open Space Management Plan? Well, it allows us to document and to track and direct our open space management in Northglenn. View it as a holistic plan rather than just individual properties or individual issues. It brings awareness to specific areas of concern, and it's also there to protect the urban wildlife. Goals and actions of this plan include promoting the ecosystem, sustainability, enhancing and protecting natural, cultural, and educational and scenic resources, and providing safe and enjoyable passive outdoor recreation spaces. So what has changed in this plan for the 2025 update? It's been updated to reflect the 2019 Unified Development Ordinance reference to open space. Added a reference to the 2006 ordinance defining nature areas. Updated site-specific past maintenance and updated ongoing maintenance and management practices. So we'll go through and talk specifically about a list of properties here that are listed as open space properties throughout the city of Northglenn. The Farmers Highline Canal past maintenance highlights include the 2018 asphalt and trail replacement, 2022 fire hazard mitigation project at Pinnacle Creek, mainly underbrush cutting and hazard tree removal, dead tree removal, and just clearing out brush and shrubbery that had overgrown or dead. 2024 additional hazard tree removals, and the annual Farmers Highline Canal cleanup, which I'm sure you're probably all aware of. It's a successful event that we partner with the city of Thornton and have a great community interest and very good community support to do cleanup out there. So ongoing maintenance and management practices out there include survey for noxious weeds annually, assessing desirable vegetation and treating infestations as needed. Monitoring the tree health, trimming and maintaining clearance areas, and removing hazards or dead brush as needed. Namely, a big emphasis put on fire hazard and fire mitigation. Maintaining tree plantings along the ditch corridor, performing limited mowings, typically 6 to 8 feet along the trailways and 10 feet off the backs of properties to maintain those fire breaks, and conducting full area mowings at the end of the growing season. The ponds at Windward Park, past maintenance highlights include ongoing replacement of wooden boardwalk with the Crush Refined Trail. That was a Boy Scout project, to my understanding, years ago, and as those become outside of their useful life, they're pulled up and then just replaced right now with the Crush Refined pathway. The trees pruned and removed around the pond and along the pathway. Ongoing maintenance and management practices out there include surveying for and treating for noxious weeds as needed. They did have some stands out there that had been eradicated, so we just have those on our notes, and we go back and take a look at those and specifically watch for those specific species to target. Monitoring the prawns throughout the growing season for any algae, treating as necessary to support water quality and mosquito mitigation, and mowing along the pathways out there regularly. Grange Hall Creek and Fox Run Nature Area, past maintenance highlights include active management to support native vegetation and reduce invasive species, Russian olive and salt cedar controlled through chemical and mechanical treatment. Purple loosestrife has been eradicated. That was one of the sites that had a significant infestation at one point. We still continue to monitor that annually. There was a bat box project produced out there and installed by the Scouts back in 2017. There's interpretive signage and scenic nodes that were added in 2017, and the pollinator garden was installed with a partnership with the Butterfly Pavilion in 2024. So ongoing maintenance and management practices include survey and treat for noxious weeds, evaluating control efforts, and supporting native vegetation recovery where reseeding is able to and we deem necessary. Collaborate with adjacent landowners to manage and prevent the prairie dog approach into open space. That's an ongoing issue right now. They're right on our doorstep. Mowing fire breaks 6 to 8 feet along pathways and streets and at least 10 feet along fence lines for fire breaks. Resurfacing crushed refined trail systems as needed. We actually just had a community volunteer project. It was the Texas Roadhouse corporate folks came in and asked the city of Northglenn if we had a project for them, and we put them out there and did a overhaul of some of the pavers that kind of transitioned out of the neighborhood and into this open space there. So pretty good project. The Crook Reservoir, past maintenance highlights include hazard tree removal, major renovations in 2008, including the shoreline stabilization, plaza, and signage. Underwater structures to enhance fish habitat were added back in 2018. The Crook Reservoir Subcommittee developed a series of recommendations for improvements in 2019, and those included and have been implemented for the ADA compliant fishing platform with additional interpretive signage and low profile fencing that was added just back in 2023. Ongoing maintenance includes survey and treatment for noxious weeds as needed, monitoring vegetation recovery and habitat conditions, identifying, proving, and removing hazard trees as needed. So that area has a lot of very mature trees, and so some of that is kind of ongoing annually multiple times throughout the year. We're back out there for branches after heavy windstorms. We're out there doing frequent inspections and taking down anything that's of hazard or of concern before it becomes a hazard, hopefully. Support the public works in monitoring the water quality and the fishery health, assisting with maintenance of the aeration system, preserving and supporting wildlife habitat, and maintaining the trails out there regularly. Oscar Arnold Nature Area, past maintenance highlights include aggressive treatment of noxious weeds, including Canada thistle, yellow toad flax, Russian olive, and teasel. Final remaining Russian olives were removed in 2019. And if you've been out there, I'm going to kind of cheat forward a little bit. There's actually some out there now, which they don't take long to get established either. So we have those targeted for this year removal as well. Fire breaks expanded for fire mitigation, and the goat grazing program was introduced back in 2023. We just completed our third year of that, and it definitely is a hit, and the associated event with it has basically doubled in size every year we've done it. So it's growing exponentially. Ongoing maintenance and management, survey and treatment for noxious weeds using targeted chemical, mechanical, and goat grazing methods. Adjusting the goat grazing program for next year based on the ongoing needs and evaluations. Again, it's growing exponentially, so we are already in talks with our contractor about how we can make that event a little more conducive to the amount of folks that are coming out and make it a little bit better. Monitoring control efforts and vegetation response, studying vegetation changes from grazing and overseeding. So this is one of the other areas that we are partnered with the Butterfly Pavilion. They came out and surveyed the only section of this property that had not been grazed yet before it got grazed this year, and they are scheduled to come back out again this year and for the next probably 3 to 5 years and look at that effects and possible try to draw conclusions about that being directly affected from the goat grazing program. Spot treating weed infestations chemically and mechanically in dryland areas, mechanically only in wetland and riparian areas. Maintaining fire breaks of 6 to 8 feet along pathways and streets and 10 feet along residential fences. Monitoring for new Russian olive growth and treating as necessary. As I mentioned, we have projects scheduled for later this season out there. northwest open space, including the athletic field. So this is just across the ditch line from the last Oscar Arnold slide. Past maintenance highlights include aggressive treatment of the noxious weeds, including Canada thistle, yellow toadflax, and field bindweed. Ongoing maintenance includes treating of those noxious weeds through the use of chemical, mechanical, and potentially biological controls moving over there this next year, and talks about it right now for the goat grazing to potentially bump them across the bridge for a little bit in the small section over there. Mowing areas regularly and routinely to maintain that 10 minimum break and residential fire breaks there. We also utilize that the more frequent mowing on this site just as another mechanical method because we have other mowing going on that site with routine maintenance. We can afford the slight deviation and additional time frame for those. And monitoring for Russian olive and removals and treat it as necessary. So again, tonight we're looking for any direction for future ideas that you would like to see implemented or direction to proceed with the plan as is. And again, the process for this is it's already been to the Parks and Rec Advisory Board on the same night. It's here before you tonight, and we would bring it back if you choose to push it forward on July 28th for further consideration.
Okay. Councilmember Kondo?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is, first of all, again, another great presentation. I live in the proximity, I think, of Grant Ditch. And I just wanted to figure out where does it fall here on this presentation? Is it considered part of the Grange Hall Creek / Fox Run nature area? Or is it its own designated area and it's just not listed here?
That is part of, okay. So, I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with that reference, but it sounds like it is part of the Grange Hall Creek area. So if you have specifics on that, I can definitely, you can definitely reach out and I can provide specific details back on what's, how we can address or what we have been doing to address any of those specifics.
Yes, it sounds like you're really going aggressively after the Russian olive, and I've seen a number of Russian olive trees just west of Grant on that nature area. I can follow up with you separately.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Councilmember Walker?
Thank you. This looks great. I appreciate the park by park breakdown. So I say let's proceed.
Thank you.
I agree. I have a related question, though. I was approached by a resident at the car show on the 4th of July, and he had some concerns about the elm tree and I think it's the borer beetle, Dutch elm disease. Do we have any city trees that are getting sick?
So there's a couple different things. So if you're talking about the elm, the infestation that we've seen this year in some areas, and it's a common beetle that comes in, and I apologize because it's slipping my it's right on the tip of my tongue, but it's slipping my mind right now. It's really not much that we can do about those insects as they come in and they infest on the trees and they kind of move around, right? So it's there's a male version of the tree and there's a female version of the tree, so they kind of target one at specific time frames, and they move back and forth. So they'll collect on one and then spread back out and then come back and collect. That typically, we can do some treatment. It's limited efficacy in how it's done. But we would look at those specifically if there is an infestation in any of our properties. Our forester would go out, take a look, evaluate, and determine if it was proper, if it was prudent to treat at that point, if it's already past stage, where it's at. But we have not seen any direct tree die out related to any of the beetles at this point.
Okay.
The other one that's kind of in the news right now is the ash borer. So
That may be what he was talking about.
that's kind of what we were
Yeah.
going for there. And we have not, to my knowledge, discovered definitively any within the city of Northglenn. I think Denver just released information that they have definitively just proven that it is there. It's in other metro areas. It's kind of been a topic for probably going on about a decade now, trying to really prevent and keep going. So there are things we can do, namely what most folks are doing, what most municipalities are doing is just not planting additional ashes at this point. If you do happen to lose some, we're planning we would plan to replant those with additional different species, but additional trees in those areas to replace those. But for a mature tree, we're going to aggressively try to target and make sure if we do see an infestation that we do treatments at that point. You can do treatments preemptively, but if you're talking about trying to do them citywide to all ashes, that would be a budget consideration that we really aren't funded for right now at this point. But as it starts to move progressively closer to Northglenn, or if we do discover it, that would probably be something that we would look and take a hard evaluation, identifying either specific trees that we really want to try to save because of their significance or their maturity, their height, and their prominence and where they're at, or potentially looking at a wider spread program where we expand out and do treatment, but that would require funding.
Okay. And additionally, his second question was, is there anything that we had planned, I'm guessing not, but to support our residents through this process? So he was talking about, is there any program through the city and I was like, well, I lost one and it was on me to take it down. It was my cost to take it down. And so I wasn't quite sure what he was asking. I think he was asking about preventative measures. Is there any education we can do to the community to say, hey, if you see this, you might be able to get in front of it, or?
Certainly.
I don't know.
So our forester, we have a forestry staff of two, a lead forester and another assistant forester.
Okay.
They frequently take time to call residents back and talk to them about their specific property needs of their trees. On occasion, we will go out and look at something and provide, you might want to get a professional in to come and take that down before it falls on your house or those types of things. But predominantly, the best resource for training and education and resources is the Colorado State University. On their website, you can go on there. They have a phenomenal agronomy program, all kinds of agricultural information, and they are leaders in the industry. But they also, if you are looking specifically for ash borer information, preventative measures, the great Google has all kinds of stuff, but we typically direct people right to Colorado State University, and then also doing some other, there's multiple other universities that have studied that and have recommendations out there. Beyond that, I would say get some initial education and resources there, and then reaching out to a qualified arborist company that can come in and make an evaluation, potentially provide those treatments for you. Talking to the co-op located over in Brighton, and talking with those folks over there. They have chemicals and different treatment methods and whatnot, and they love to geek out on this stuff and talk to you about what kind of measures you can do, what treatment methods. And some of that stuff is stuff that homeowners can do themselves. Some of the stuff is probably best left to professionals.
Okay. I wonder, maybe it's a future connection article, maybe not, but there's a lot of trees in the city, so if we can prevent them from dying, that'd be great.
Yeah, so preventing them from dying would be great. Taking them down in a timely fashion before they become hazards, if they are reaching the end of their life expectancy or their useful life. But so one of those ways that we have the other program that we have to kind of promote that replacement of trees is the tree sale program. So my understanding is that was available in years past. It kind of took a hiatus for a couple of years, and we brought it back this last year. So we sold roughly, I don't remember the exact number, 43, 45 trees, somewhere in there this year, out of the 50 that we had available for sale. So next year, we're looking to expand that a little bit and potentially push to 60 or so trees. Those are available. So press releases will go out early in the year next year, and those are available at the direct cost that the city gets them for at a very steep discount. So it's like $80 to $90 for a tree. That's probably a close to $150 to $200 value tree. And usually it's significantly different quality than what you would pick up if you just ran to Home Depot real quick.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I apologize. My brain is on a jet lag delay, so it's taking me a while to catch up. I did think of something, and I had another question, but I feel like it was kind of just answered. So, like, my property is right, it butts along the open space, the northwest open space, and all those homes there. So what recourses does a property owner have? I'm just imagining, like, my neighbors, you know, if let's say there's a Russian olive tree that's kind of overhanging in their yard, or, but it's city property, or noxious weeds that kind of move into people's yards. Like, what would be the best procedure? Is it, hey, call the city and say, you know, I noticed these weeds and they're coming into my yard? Or what do you recommend for property owners that may notice something from the open space kind of encroaching, you know, in their property, or any of the other spaces for that matter, not just the northwest open space?
Certainly. So if it's a city-maintained, city-owned facility, like a official city open space, yeah, feel free to, they should feel free to put in a request on the city's website for service, put in a regular service ticket, just like you would if you had a downed street light pole or any other issues going on in one of the parks. You can put in a request there. You can certainly just call the Parks Division and ask to speak to somebody about your issue. You can send an email up to us, or you could go the enforcement route as well and call the code enforcement to ask them to come out and take a look. And especially if you aren't sure if it's a city property or not, that's probably the fastest, easiest way to go, so it doesn't get bounced around before it gets kicked back to you to tell you that that's not city-owned property. If you know it's not city-owned property, it's a neighbor's property, or if you're just uncertain, it's probably best just to go ahead and call code enforcement, tell them that you have a issue that you'd like them to look at. They will either come out and address that and talk to you about whether it is an issue or is not an issue that they can enforce on. And then they would most likely, most of the time, they're also getting us directly involved to ask for our opinions or to make an evaluation for them as well.
Right, thanks for recapping. I know that part was mentioned earlier, so I was just curious. It's just good information for people to have. And then you mentioned, I was going to ask about tree replacement, but the tree sale program, I guess that's like if it's in your yard, but does the city do that as well? So if they find like this giant Russian olive tree, is there a program or a process, since we are Tree City, to eventually replace?
We are Tree City
area?
USA.
Yeah.
We do have this year, my lead forester was about planted out by the time he was done planting. So
That's great.
we dropped over 150 trees into the ground this year. That's just in the tree planting program. That does not include all of the trees that were purchased through the tree sale program and went into residential properties or property owners within the city of Northglenn that are not city owned. And that also does not include any of the memorial trees that were purchased from individuals who want to memorialize or put something out, leave a memento, lasting legacy out in one of the parks. So those are also in addition to the 150 plus trees that we planted this year. And I apologize, I don't have the exact number on top of my head because it kept changing. But we do extensive amount of planting, and it's far exceeding the removals that we do. We don't necessarily say a Russian olive comes out one for one. That's really, we treat that more as a noxious weed, and it comes out and goes away. And if it's appropriate though, and we want shade in the area where that was at. So Russian olives do provide functionality. They just are not, again, good for the environment. So we try to get those out of there, especially in areas where they can encroach and take over, especially off of our property. But if it's a functional tree inside of a park, which hopefully there are none of those left anymore, but we would at that point then replace that with the functional shade tree or something appropriate.
Okay, that's great. That answers my question. And then I didn't know about the bat boxes, so I'm going to go look for those. That sounds really cool. I had no idea we had bat boxes. So I learned something new. Thank you.
If you would like to be directed towards them, they're kind of hard to find and see if you don't know exactly where they're at. We're looking to potentially put some interpretive signage out along the trail to kind of point them out, and so bring some education to it. But if you'd like to know specifically where those are at, you can feel free to request that information or send me an email, and I can drop a little pin on the map and directly right to them.
I would, because they're great at getting those mosquitoes, right? That's good mosquito
They are.
mitigation, and that's natural, biological, right? Yeah, it's great. Thank you.
Councilmember Jaramillo.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to thank you for all the brand new trees that have been planted. I've noticed them, in our parks, just walking around. EB Rains Park, even along 120th and also 104th. I think it's great. I hear a lot from my constituents along 120th that, a lot of the noise that's going on from traffic, and then, the trees will definitely help mitigate that noise. So, and it also looks, aesthetically pleasing, So I appreciate that dedication to having brand new trees planted. But other than that, keep up the great work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Burns?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to say I did the tree program. We bought, because whoever, the last owners of our home had a Russian olive planted in the front yard. And we had that removed, and we just replaced it with a serviceberry tree for our front yard, because this way the roots won't get into your plumbing. So serviceberries all the way for non-invasive roots. Thank you. We love it. My son named it Bingo. So
Nice. Thank you.
That's great. No further questions. Thank you so much. Yeah, go forward. It's great. It's great work.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, let's clap. Well done. All right. That is the end of our agenda for this evening. Do we have any other last-minute items for council? No? Okay. Hearing none, we are adjourned. Have a great night, everyone.